Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Language UK SLC Pathway to Success OET webinar. My name is Jonathan Allen, and I'm very pleased to be with our super guest speaker, Peter Rodway from SLC, who I'll be introduced to properly in a minute. Today, we're going to be talking about the advantages and opportunities for OET for medical professionals seeking international employment and study in the UK. And we're very proud to be launching our new course for the Occupational English test, and very proud to be launching it with SLC, Specialist Language Courses, who are very well respected and well established trainer in their own right, and publisher as well. So we're going to be going through the summary of the frequently asked questions about this test. We're going to be looking at some advice and sort of study roadmap for UK-based or overseas-based students. If you're looking to give them advice, if you're an educational agent, or if you're looking to get advice yourself as a student. We're going to be talking about the advantages of studying online. Now, Peter is a veteran of online provision, so he's going to be giving us some interesting insights into that as well. Peter is the director and founder of Specialist Language Courses. That I think they've been going for almost 10 years now. He has actually got about 19, almost 20 years now, I think, Peter, experience in the industry. Started off. That's right.
That flew by, didn't it? Yes.
Yeah, you actually put 15 years in your bio, but I was doing a little bit of
Maths isn't my strong point, Jonathan. Languages. So, yeah, maybe around 19, 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to make himself look young. But no, he's about 19 years experience in the industry. I think he's been a teacher trainer at first in Japan. He's also worked in several senior management roles for major schools such as International House, Malvern, also Cactus. For the past sort of almost 10 years, he's been working with NHS England and CCGs and international partners, helping them to recruit medical professionals, nurses, doctors, and other medical professionals. He is our expert speaker today. Just to give you a quick rundown of who I am, quickly, because I skipped a slide, and about Language UK. We were established in 2007 as an independent language school. We specialize in language courses for adults, young learners. We're accredited by the British Council, British Accreditation Council. We're very proud members of English UK. We're Tolls Test Centre for legal professionals. We're also an OET preliminary preparation provider, of course, which is why we're talking today. And we also specialize in English for specific purposes courses for aviation, legal, hospitality, healthcare, IT, engineering, finance, and the teaching sectors. And now I'm going to hand you over to Peter to tell you a little bit more about Specialist Language Courses.
And thank you for welcoming me, Jonathan, and the rest of the team at Language UK. Really appreciate the opportunity, and good morning to everybody who is online. So as Jonathan very kindly said, yes, we founded Specialist Language Courses just about 10 years ago, and both myself and my business partner, we have a great deal of industry experience. But we decided to found SLC on the premise of focusing on areas of language that were critical to safety, where communication, English communication, is critical to safety in very high stakes environments. And obviously you can understand how medical English and OET, which we'll be talking about today, can be a very high stakes environment indeed. It actually can mean life or death sometimes. In those 10 years, I'm very happy to say, we've become the UK's leading provider of digital language services to the healthcare sector. We're now the UK's leading provider of digital medical English courses to educators, and by that I mean primarily schools and universities. Our medical English courses, which we'll also touch on today, are used by medical schools, nursing colleges around the world. We're the UK's leading accredited OET training provider, and we were the first OET All-Stars provider. I'll move on to explaining a little bit more about why that's important a little bit later in the webinar. So what is OET? At its heart, OET is a clinical English test. So it was designed specifically to assess English language skills of healthcare professionals. Today, although it covers 12 professions, that's primarily nurses and doctors are the medical professionals that are taking this en masse. And whilst it may be a new area, a new exam for many providers, educators and exam centres around the world, it actually has quite a long and storied history. It's around 30 years old, so it's by no means a new exam. It's something with a great amount of history and pedigree, originating out of Australia. If you've had a look at the content of OET already, you will find some familiar aspects. So it follows a similar format, in fact, to IELTS and some other major English language exams, consisting of 4 papers, so listening, reading, speaking and writing. And this is quite an important thing for us to talk about. So who recognises OET results, and why is that important? The reason that you'll have perhaps, and I hope that this is true, and I know a lot of you are potentially educational agents or work in the education sector, you'll have experienced an increase in or an uptick in interest in OET is because of the way it's been recognised. So OET results are accepted as proof of your English language skills in the UK, USA, Ireland. There's a whole list up on the screen. When I say accepted as proof, I mean a couple of things. Essentially, OET is accepted as the proof of English by the governing bodies, the legislative bodies for the healthcare sectors around the world. So in the UK, for doctors, that means the GMC, the General Medical Council, and for nurses, that means the NMC, the Nursing and Midwifery Council. But all of the countries that you see up on the screen at the moment, the governing bodies of the healthcare workers, they accept OET as proof that your English allows you to be safe to practice. The most recent of those being the USA, where the ECFMG has just accepted OET, which means that any international medical graduate who wishes to practice in the USA as a doctor can now use OET to prove their English language skills. And this slide is somewhat UK centric, and it's primarily because this is the work that I do day to day, as Jonathan explained, about how it's recognised here in the UK. So the General Medical Council, that is the governing body for doctors. So all non-UK trained doctors who wish to apply to register with the GMC and practice in the UK will be required to prove their English language skills. You can use IELTS, and IELTS is at a 7.5 for doctors, or you can use OET, and you require an OET grade B in all 4 tests. So it's in each subtest, in each skill you need a B, and that all has to be achieved in 1 sitting. Slight difference with the nurses, with the NMC, the Nursing and Midwifery Council. Same thing, all non-UK trained nurses who are applying for registration do need to prove their English language. The IELTS level is a little bit lower than doctors. It's an IELTS 7. And in parallel with that, the OET level is a little bit different. So it's 3 Bs, so listening, reading and speaking, with a grade C+, which is the equivalent of an IELTS 6.5 in writing. Importantly as well, nurses are allowed to combine 2 tests. So if you sit OET and you don't achieve all of your scores, as long as nothing drops below a C+, you can combine 2 papers. Doctors aren't able to do that. They need to do it all in 1 sitting. And okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide, but hopefully it's information that's familiar to all of you who work in education. So what we have on the left is the CEF or the CEFR levels, so the Common European Framework of Reference for Language Levels, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. And down the central column, IELTS. So you've got your banded IELTS scores from 4 to 9. And now on the far right-hand column, we have the framework under which we describe OET scores. So the first thing that a lot of people find a little bit confusing when first approaching OET, and this will probably be the case for people who are inquiring from you for information on OET, is that OET has two scoring systems. It has an A to D scoring system, and it has a numeric scoring system in hundreds, from 100 to 450. Now, quite annoyingly, the alphabetical system is the other way around. It's flipped from the CEFR. So the highest level of OET is an A, whereas the lowest level of the CEFR is an A, and the lowest level being a D. And the numeric scores, they are, in quite large bands, as you can see. So numbers ranging, across the hundreds. So it can be a little bit hard to interpret what's going on for people who are not familiar with the test, which is why it's important that people who are giving advice on the OET test really know their stuff and know what they're talking about. Now, another thing that you may come across is that people will inquire of you that they want to pass the OET test. Now, OET is not a pass or fail exam. It's the same as IELTS. It's in a banded scoring system. So what your candidates and users might mean when they say, I want to pass the OET, is that they want to achieve the score that is accepted by the governing body to which they're applying. In most cases, that's going to be an OET-B. There's a few outliers. So as you saw on the previous slide, nurses in the UK can use a C+ in one of the skills, but most of the governing bodies are looking for an OET-B. Why is that important? That's important because, as you can see by cross-referencing the CEFR and the IELTS scores, an OET-B is a very high level of achievement. It's a very high level of language attainment. It's an advanced level. So B actually straddles the IELTS 7.5 kind of up into the 8. So it's it's a pure C1 level. And you'll know that although it's changing somewhat now globally in terms of the overall picture of language ability and language levels, that you have usually fewer students who are operating at a C1 level. So you may well be getting inquiries from people who are essentially around a B2 level, which can be anything from a 5.5 to a 6.5 on IELTS. They need to achieve not only a general English score of advanced C1, but they then also need to look at exam strategy and actually how to pass this test, which means that going in cold, even if you have a very strong level of English, it's hard to achieve a B without proper preparation. So what's in the test? So we know there are 4 papers, and it's the traditional listening, reading, writing and speaking. Another kind of idiosyncrasy here is that the OET test, it's not one test, it's actually 12 different tests, which are for the 12 medical professions that are I can go through some of them, but nurses and doctors are going to be the main users, but there's an OET test for pharmacists, there's an OET test for dentists, there's an OET test for veterinarians even. Now, this is important because the subtests are broken down in a somewhat unusual way, that the listening and reading, when you sit listening and reading, even if you're taking the OET nursing or OET medicine as a doctor, you may encounter comprehension questions from any of the 12 professions. It's not necessarily the case that when you do your piece of reading or your listening, it's going to be purely about nursing or purely about medicine as a doctor. So in terms of your preparation, you do have to build your vocabulary and knowledge in the other professions as well, so that you're not taken by surprise by anything that they add into the test there. The productive skills, though, the writing and the speaking, these are always profession specific. So if you're a doctor and you're taking the OET medicine test, the piece of writing that you're asked to produce in the test will be, as a doctor, you'll be writing usually a referral letter as a doctor to a peer or another specialist. If you're a nurse, you'll be doing the same thing. And the speaking, which is probably one of the most interesting and enjoyable parts of teaching OET, actually, that is also profession specific. So you'll be doing a role play in a clinical setting as your profession, as a nurse or as a doctor. So, you know, as Jonathan said, this is all we do at specialist language courses. So we only teach medical English. We only produce medical English courses, digital courses. We only work with doctors, nurses. And what I've found, you know, because I have a long teaching history myself, a long teaching career, is that there are some really interesting and you know, special parts of this test that you really won't find anywhere else. And I think, again, being able to demonstrate your knowledge and illustrate why OET is different and why it's, you know, particularly why it's different to the other routes that you could use to prove your English register, it's a really important thing to be able to do. There's 4 examples up on the screen, and I'll just go through these briefly. First of all, and some of the, and I must say that a lot of these actually do refer really to the production of language. So this is the speaking and the writing as opposed to the comprehension. So eliciting and dealing with sensitive topics. So primarily in the speaking, but and I hope everybody is okay with the language being used here in terms of eliciting. But this is healthcare English. So eliciting and dealing with sensitive topics. This could mean things like mental health, sexual health, death. These are not easy things to do in a second language, and they're not easy things to do, you know, with subtlety and with empathy. And you won't find that in many other exams, to my knowledge. So you've almost got a soft skill element coming in here. And there's also cultural differences within healthcare systems. So if you're a medical professional coming from certain parts of the world, but then you're wanting to work in Australia or the UK or the US, different roles, different people deal with these conversations in different ways in their own home systems. But what this test will teach you is how to do it in the way that's expected of you if you're going to be working using English. Translation of specialist language into lay language. So lay language is, you know, the everyday language that everybody understands. This is also very important. Nurses and doctors, they speak to patients. They also speak to families of people who are sick. And not everybody understands the medical terminology. So you, of course, you've been to nursing school, you've been to medical school, you know, you've got a degree in your healthcare profession. You know all of the names of the drugs, you know all the names of the parts of the body, all the names of the diseases, all the equipment. The people that who are your patients, or are the concerned family members of your patients, they don't necessarily know these things. So you need to be able to demonstrate your ability to switch into everyday language, into lay language, to explain medical areas in a way that everybody can understand. And that's a skill in itself. And down in the bottom left, reassuring someone who is anxious. You know, as you can imagine, I do hope, of course, that none of you have been seriously ill recently, or know anybody who's been ill. But you can understand that almost, you know, most reasons for you to be in a hospital environment, you're probably going to be anxious about what's going on, either for your own health or for the health of a loved one. And being able to, and this isn't necessarily medical language, but being able to reassure somebody, to listen actively and in a caring way. This is super important to OET speaking, but also it comes up in the listening comprehension as well. And again, I think it's really a skill area that is missing from a lot of other English exams. So it makes OET quite special. And the fourth one, quite a strange one, but you do it in the marking criteria for some of the papers. This actually comes up, is the power relationship. If somebody's talking to you and you're a nurse or a doctor, it's because they think, you know, they want your advice. You're a medical professional, so you need to be able to demonstrate that you're in control of that situation, that you are the person with the knowledge, you are the person that can be trusted. And that means a certain type of communication, again, which is not everyday general English communication, because really you need to be in control of that conversation. And you will all know as language experts that, again, that's a skill in itself as well, taking control of a narrative taking control of a conversation. So some very important special areas to the test. Just a quick slide on our YouTube channel here. The reason this slide's in here is because the slide that I just described with the specialist areas of language, it's quite a deep kind of treasure trove of information. You can learn quite a lot about these more specialized areas of OET. And we've got a lot of free materials on our YouTube channel that go into that in some detail. So if you would like to discover a little bit more about those kind of special areas of language in OET, or you'd like to direct your candidates to take a look if they're doing a bit of their own fact finding, our YouTube channel is a good place to start. There's plenty of free material. So online, and the slide titled Why Online. I think all of us in the last year and a half, it's fair to say, no matter where you're kind of joining us from today, we'll have been through a period where you've had changes and disruption to your life and your business because of the pandemic, and that has meant that a lot of people are now more familiar with online and more accepting of online than ever before, because people will be working from home, people will be studying from home. In our case at SLC, and Jonathan did mention this at the top when he introduced me, our work isn't a reaction to the pandemic. We've been working in the online space for a decade, so it's not about a reaction to the current situation. It's something that we always set out to do. It's our core methodology, and there are some very good reasons for that. In terms of the publication of materials, online, so digital language courses have an inherent advantage over hard copy textbooks in that they are iterative and they can be updated often in some cases. Now, with medical English and OET, that's really very important. OET itself, the test, has been through 3 major changes in the last 2 years. Hard copy textbooks have not been able to keep up with that. Our digital courses are completely up to date and always will be. And medical English, so of course, you know, the foundation of OET is clinical communication and medical English. But even without the OET piece, even if you're just looking at pure medical and clinical work, things change quite rapidly. You know, new techniques emerge, new best practice emerges, new rules on drugs are brought in, and all of that is kept up to date in a digital course in a way that could never be the case with hard copy. So that's with the published materials. Now, on the training side of things, so online training, and John's going to go into some detail about how SLC and LanguageUK are going to collaborate on that with LanguageUK teachers. Reach and scale. This is something that, you know, I can't stress enough. There is not a proliferation of expert teachers for OET or for clinical English. It's not the case that you can kind of toss up between your, you know, kind of your local language school or somebody near the hospital or near the university as an option for some of these areas. Some of these areas require real expertise, and working online means that you can get a proper expert to your learners wherever they are in the world. You don't have to be bound by geography. And the other one is scale. Now, it's been a little while actually, since, you know, it's been 10 years actually since I've worked in a traditional language school environment, but I remember it well. You know, the kind of the logistics around classrooms, but also things like, you know, flights, accommodation, activities, all of these things, which means that scale is an issue sometimes for larger projects. But the reality of an online delivery in this space is that if you're working with an organization like a private hospital or a medical university in your home country, and they say, hey, we've got 1,000 nurses and we want to set something up, you can say yes, and you can roll that out much more easily and much quicker than you ever could with traditional kind of face-to-face methods. So reach and scale and flexibility, those are paramount to us, and it's been very important to our growth, and I really think that it's something that we should all, as educators and sellers of educational projects, should now really be kind of looking into and latching onto as a concept, because it allows you to arrange some much more powerful deliveries, in my opinion. Now, of course, Language UK is also a face-to-face provider, and I'm not dismissing the place for face-to-face teaching. I know, you know, I'm a human being. I require human contact sometimes as well, and it's good to meet people face to face, of course. But in terms of the commercials on this, the flexibility, the adaptability, and the reach and the scale, I think online is a very, very powerful thing. The fifth one, sustainability. I won't wax lyrical on that. I'm sure that you're all into sustainability and green practices in your own organisations. But of course, less travel is a more sustainable way to teach. A little bit more about kind of our background and what qualifies us to produce this material, and then talk a little bit about the material itself that LUK will be using.
Okay.
So what sets us apart, and really what this slide is you know, how can we know what we're talking about, and why should you use our materials? So SLC was the first accredited OET provider in Europe. Why is this important? OET is an exam that has an accreditation system behind it. So unlike other exams where there is really a very mature market of various different qualities of material out there, but there's no real such thing as, you know, an accredited IELTS teacher. An experienced IELTS teacher, yes. Somebody who's got a teaching qualification, yes. But there's no inherent accreditation systems to a lot of examinations. For OET, there is, and this is very important again for your candidates if they're tossing up the difference between studying online with kind of materials that they've curated themselves, or they're just, you know, kind of surfing the internet, or they're on Amazon trying to buy a book, or they're looking at a different school other than Language UK, for example. No, really, it's important to work with accredited materials in the case of OET. It's a very, very high stakes exam, and it changes relatively often, so it's very important to keep up to date. All-Star, yeah, I mean, this is a little badge of achievement we have from OET. If you go on the OET website, you'll find some people involved with the teaching and examining of OET are All-Stars. It means that our content is vetted essentially by the exam board. So we have an extra stamp of approval on everything that we produce for OET. All of our online courses, which will form the core course materials for the Language UK offering, they're also CPD accredited. So most medical professionals do need to keep up a portfolio of ongoing CPD. Certainly in the UK they do. There's other systems in other locations, but all of our courses are CPD accredited as well. And actually the first time OET was delivered in the UK for the NHS, that was SLC. We were the first organisation to do any teaching of OET in the UK for the NHS. So the main event, this is what we're here for, to talk about the actual courses that LUK will be using in their delivery. So there's 4 core courses. Now these are digital courses. They're accessed on a learning management system, an LMS. Your candidates don't need anything particularly powerful in terms of how to access these. They just need a computer with an internet connection. So you log on to you don't download anything. There's no executable files or software. You just log on to a portal via a website. There are 2 OETB courses, Reach OETB Medicine and Reach OETB Nursing. These are specific to the papers. So if you're a doctor, you take Reach OETB Medicine. If you're a nurse, you take Reach OETB Nursing. These are high-level courses, so they're, if you remember, at the level that we want to achieve is B, and that's a C1 advanced on the CEFR. So these are language strategy courses. These are exam strategy courses. These are not so much language building courses. These are the test techniques, the strategies, the paper-specific activities that will help you to achieve that B that you're looking for. If you're below that level, and you need to work on a foundation first. And that may well be the case for a lot of people who approach you. You know, if you're in the kind of the low to mid B2 area, for example, you'd be best advised to start work on your obviously your language skills, getting your language to C1, but also your clinical English. So we have a longer courses, 100-hour courses for nurses and doctors, which are clinical communication courses, and they form an excellent foundation for OET exam strategy courses. Just going to play a quick video on Reach OETB. So this is the 60-hour Reach OETB courses, the exam strategy courses, just to give you a little indication of what they look like and how they work.
Do you need to score a B in the OET test? Then this course is for you. This unique online course gives you the language and test techniques and test strategies you need to achieve a high score in each of the 4 OET papers: reading, listening, writing, and speaking. The course is dynamic and interactive with multiple activities, video and audio inputs, expert insights, and plenty of test practice. And it's online, so you can study when you want, where you want. SLC is Europe's first OET accredited.
And once again, we'll just play a short excerpt from this video. So this is the English for Nurses course. This is 100 hours, and this is a clinical communication course rather than an OET preparation course. But again, if what we've found is that if somebody comes to you and says, look, I want to pass, I'm a nurse, I'm a doctor, I want to pass the OET test, and you say, well, I'm sorry, sir, I'm sorry, ma'am, you know, your English level isn't ready yet, let's do a general English course. It's not very engaging. They don't, from my experience, these people, they don't feel that they're on the right, even though we know as educators, yes, there may be foundational issues with their language. They don't feel on the kind of commercial side of the conversation that they're on the right pathway if you put them on a business English course or a general English course. So clinical communication course, so contextualizing language and filling in those gaps in a clinical context is much more successful in my experience in terms of engagement.
On SLC's online English for Nurses course, nurses learn the medical English and clinical communication skills they need to work, travel, research and network in English. It's 100 hours long and covers a wide range of language, from welcoming patients to discussing symptoms, administering medications, infection control, and describing different care procedures and therapies.
In terms of the English for doctors and English for nurses, what kind of ratio do you get from demand, if you found, for English for nurses versus the OETB? Are they quite comparative?
Yeah, I think in terms of total, well, there's a couple of things to look at actually here. In terms of total global test takers, many more nurses take OET than doctors. Mm-hmm. However, the numbers of nurses taking OET are boosted by some of the key recruitment markets that we would call kind of in the UK, we would call them international recruitment routes, being you know, Philippines and India. And a lot of those nurses do not take any preparation. They just bang their heads against the wall until they you know, hopefully find a way of passing. So actually, in terms of the commercial side of things, so the selling of courses, we find a lot more doctors actually have the time and also the kind of the money to invest in themselves as well. So actually, although the global numbers of test takers, nurses is much higher, we're at parity or just a little bit ahead with doctors in terms of actual delivery. Mm-hmm. So at the top of the webinar, we discussed how it was very important to keep everything updated, and this platform update, this is one of the most recent additions to the platform. The platform itself is a very powerful learning management system, and it's I'm not sure how familiar everybody will be with how online courses are prepared. But essentially what you do to produce an online course is, first of all, you need to author it. So you need to use a different tool to create the activities. And different LMSs, different systems will have the ability to display different types of activities, essentially. So if you work for a big company, a big blue chip company, it may well be that there is some kind of training, online training that is available to you as a member of staff. Those LMSs are quite simple usually. They're just, you know, kind of PowerPoint slide and then answer a few quiz questions, get a score. Our LMS is much more powerful than that, and really was designed with this kind of language acquisition in mind. So there's a real variety of different task types available on there that is more than just a kind of a memory game of looking at something and answering a question. There's some real chances to manipulate and build your language. And the most recent activity, I think one objection to you know, maybe a few years back to online, when it's delivered without a teacher. Now, in John's case, in LanguageUK case, there's always going to be the opportunity to work with a teacher, and I would recommend that. But where a candidate can't work with a teacher, or where they can't afford to work with a teacher, the course is also standalone, and we have some speaking practice activities that are inbuilt to the system that allow you to record your own voice and map your language into a dialogue. So there is another short video to illustrate that here.
So I'm just going to quickly go over why we're so excited about working with specialist language courses, and how we can work together with educational agents, and how we can deliver some really good quality courses to students as well. So basically, how it works with the partnership, I think we've made it relatively clear, but students can either study individually, and they will have live classes with our OET and TEFL trained teachers. All of our teachers are specialists in teaching English as a second language. And they also have the benefit of specialist language courses, fantastic courses, which, as Peter said, they are CPD recognized, which means they are recognized for continuous professional development by employers, international employers, not just in the UK, but you know, internationally as well. Every single nurse or medical profession has to do continuous professional development. So this is very nice course as well. And as Peter said, these courses are continuously updated, which is very important, because OET are constantly changing. I think a new change came in this morning, even as I was drinking my coffee. So it's really important that when we went about looking to create this online course, we wanted to create it with somebody with a really high quality publisher that can give a fantastic online experience. So it's not just about having a PDF and having a Zoom class. This is about students being able to get that 360-degree experience online, so they can interact with the platform, they can check their answers, they have expert writers and people that are constantly updating the test, because this is a high stakes exam. You do not want to get this wrong. We don't want to, and there are lots of other people out there, let's say, that put pictures of doctors on websites that may be claiming things that may not be as good quality online. So we wanted to have that assurance to give to our students, and that's why we're very excited to be in partnership with specialist language courses. That means that if you did just want to get a course from specialist language courses on its own, which Peter mentioned, you can do that. It's exactly the same price as the specialist language courses charge. But we're also very excited about working with agents to do group programs as well. So that could be blended courses where you could do, the students could start online and they could come to the UK afterwards and do courses in the school using the platform as well, keeping it all together, keeping that continuous assessment going. And also groups online. So we are working with some agents already, forming groups of nurses online, for example, because the platform does allow you to scale up, to assign teachers to groups as well. So it's a very nice opportunity for partner agents to work with us as well on scale. As Peter said, you can scale this up. There are no limits here. And it means that with the pandemic as it is, you know, you have students in their home countries that can actually be training in their home countries, taking the exam in their home countries, and not just the UK, Ireland, Australia, to several other countries around the world as well. So this is a very, very exciting prospect for us, and we're already getting a lot of interest. I mean, basically what we do is we combine live teaching with the course itself. I don't need to go over that. I think we've made that quite clear, but all of our courses come with specialist language courses, or the platform, if you like. It's not just a course, it's also a platform. So it's a place where we can monitor students' progress and things like that as well, and so can students. It also works overseas. The platform, it works in China even, which is a very important element. It's very easy to use. It integrates with Zoom, which most people use. So there are some fantastic benefits to this course, which I've kind of gone over most of them. But the great thing about this is if you're a medical professional, you don't necessarily have set times every week to study. So this can be flexible as well. Either you can set aside a week or a couple of weeks to do it as a group. If you're a training center, fine. But if you're an individual, then you may be working different shifts at different weeks. So you can, it can go in and around your work times. And you also have very, very high quality videos, audio tracks, and interactive activities. And there's a lot of test practice in there as well, which is really, really important. Got a couple of questions for Peter. The first question is what actually, so OET, we know that OET is accepted as an English exam by different countries, by different health institutions, but what else does a student need? So let's say you're a nurse, I don't know, an Italian nurse or whatever it is, and you want to come to the UK and you want to be a nurse in the UK, as well as OET, what would you need in general to do?
Okay, yeah, good question. Okay, because this may well, you may well find as agents that whilst you're being asked about the English, they want your advice and help on the whole route. Okay, so each country will have a system in place which first of all looks at the academic qualifications of the nurse. So are the nursing qualifications in line with that system? So here in the UK, we already have agreements with certain systems. So most of the European systems, yes, our nursing qualifications are in line. Most of the old Commonwealth countries, so parts of India and well, all of India, parts of Africa, it's all in line. There are some places where a little bit more work has to be done to check. So that's and that isn't something that the nurse would do. So they would submit their academic qualifications as part of their application to the NMC, and the NMC would check that with their home country, with the academic institute where they receive their nursing degree. So that's not work for the nurse to do. That's just something that's happening behind the scenes. Now, what you will also need to do if you're an international nurse or doctor is you need to get your English in place. So OET is what I'd recommend rather than IELTS. You then need to probably do, and in the case of the UK, this is definitely do, but other systems, there will be other things you need to do, some clinical professional exams that just bring you into line completely with best practice. So for nurses, that's something called a CBT and an OSCE. Now, these are essentially competency tests, and they test your knowledge of this, in the case of the OSCE and the CBT, really your knowledge of how we practice medicine in the UK in an NHS hospital. So that's not the kind of the academic theory medical knowledge per se that you'll get on your on your degree. This is a systemic knowledge of working in the UK. There will be the same in the US, for example, where there's different steps you have to take to register with the ECFMG. It's called there's lots of acronyms, I'm afraid, but essentially that's what will happen. You have your academic credentials. Some of those are kind of pre-approved, depending on the relationships between countries. If they're not pre-approved, the governing body will check it. You then have your English language requirements. I do strongly recommend OET over IELTS. I teach IELTS. I've taught it for decades. It's a fine exam. It's a great exam. It's not the best exam for medical professionals, in my humble opinion. So you have your English, and then you have your alignment on the system. So for nurses, that's OSCE and CBT in the UK. For doctors, that's PLAB. You may have heard that acronym, simulated surgery, which is some role plays. So there's that step you'll have to take. Most major employers, whether that's private healthcare or, in the case of the UK, the NHS, have training programs as part of their international recruitment pathways. So if they're hiring a nurse, most hospitals in the UK hiring a nurse from Italy, for example, will put that nurse through OSCE training and CBT training. The reality is, I'm sad to say that, and this isn't a UK problem, in the UK we are missing over 40,000 nurses. Germany has even greater numbers missing. Obviously we're not teaching German today to go into the German system, but there are major shortages of medical professionals in most developed countries. So actually medical professionals are a little bit like gold dust. So there is a lot of support for nurses and doctors coming into the workplace in the UK, and usually the employer will provide a lot of that.
So if you're an agent and you're looking for a kind of pathway to work, sort of program, this is a very nice one to do, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's some other routes as well. So nurses and doctors are a little bit different, but actually, if you're doing a true pathway to work program and you want to even start at lower levels, and we're looking at the UK, there's actually an entirely new visa that was introduced in March, which is a healthcare visa, which actually allows you to come in. You wouldn't be practicing as a nurse, you would be in a lower band role, you would be a care support worker or a healthcare assistant. But you actually can come in at a B1 on level of English. So that's not OET. You still need clinical English, of course. You need online English for nurses. You need to be able to be safe. But a lot of employers are actually bringing people in those lower band roles and then training and giving them the opportunity to stay in the UK, to learn in a school, to do online OET training, to work their way up into being a nurse. So there's plenty of routes into work here.
Fantastic. We've got a question from Maria. She's asking, what is your experience with the Russian market? If you go into a little bit.
Yeah. Well, so with OET, not so much. With medical English, massive. So we have a contract. So SLC have a contract with I don't know where you're from, Maria, but Sechenov Medical University in Moscow, which I believe is one of the kind of the higher ranked medical universities in Russia. I believe it's the #1 medical university in Russia. But through them, we actually have a Russia specific online English for doctors and online English for nurses courses, which even has Cyrillic in it. So our experience with Russia has primarily been not with overseas recruitment. So we don't see many Russian nurses and doctors wishing to leave Russia and work in other systems. We do see a lot of doctors and nurses in Russia needing to learn English as the lingua franca of medicine, so that they can talk to international patients, so that they can collaborate internationally, so they can go overseas, so they can read medical journals. So it's quite a big thing for us, Russia. So I'd be happy to give John more information on the Cyrillic version of the course. Well, it's not, of course, it's English, but it's got some of the instructions are in Cyrillic, and there's some other elements that are localized for Russia, if that's of interest to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the great things about our partnership is that for a lot of people, when they do online courses, they do need to have that kind of practice as well with a human being. We're talking about human beings, and so I think this is why this is a very nice opportunity, because of the way that the platform works, they have this access, and we do up to this kind of knowledge of the test, but not just the OETB, the English for nurses and the English for doctors, which Peter was saying that a lot of countries don't necessarily ask for the test, but they may they may need a higher competency in their chosen profession. So there are several institutions, universities that may well be looking for partnership opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's absolutely right, John. And it's the same. So essentially, you can. This is very crude, but you can split the world up into areas that export their medical professionals, and areas that don't. So not a lot of people travel out of, I mean, some do, of course, it's their prerogative, but not a lot of people travel out of Russia as compared to travel out of India to work overseas. Same in China, same in Japan. However, English is still the lingua franca for the whole, medical, healthcare field. So you need to be able to use English both clinically and academically in order to function at a high level as a medical professional. And actually, what I've experienced is that some systems are using OET even though they don't actually need to prove anything. It's just a way to show attainment and achievement in a clinical English context. Because aside from OET, there aren't really any exams like it. There's one in Canada called CELBAN, which is a clinical English test, but it's purely for the Canadian system. So it's no good to a doctor or a nurse in Russia who wants to prove their medical English. Other than that, the medical English tests that are out there are really kind of academic pet projects from universities or their entry exams for universities. They're not the same as OET. So even if you're not planning a route out to work overseas, OET can still be a really good way to indicate your level of achievement in clinical English.
Yeah, I think a really nice thing about the partnership we have with Peter is that I think what you'll find is, as an agent, several of the agents I'm working with at the moment selling these courses, is they start online, which is a very nice way to engage the clients, the students, for example, especially with closed groups that may be wanting to travel from institutions. They might be able to travel now, or they might be a little bit reticent, might not have enough time. They might not have, medical professionals might not have 12 weeks to do a course, but they may have a week. So you can start it online, you can meet our teachers, we can build that kind of relationship with them. And then they can come over to the UK as well. They have the option of coming to the UK because we are an accredited school. We have our own residence as well. We're in central Canterbury, etc. So we can do all the fun bits as well. We can do all the social excursions and all that kind of stuff as well. So I think there's a lot of scope. There's scope for in-country, where if you want to do it in a closed group online, and you still have that exposition to train teachers and to very high quality course materials. But also, if you're thinking of, okay, I've got my market now, but I want to form a group and I want to bring them over to the UK as well. That's also very nice. You could start online and then come over later. So this is a fantastic course because it works in the classroom as well. It's an excellent resource for our teachers. What it does for our teachers is it gives them a lot of confidence that they know that they're passing on the right information. I mean, all of our teachers are trained by OET as well, but it's a constant need to sort of stay on top of the test. So that's what gives me the confidence of working with Peter. The other thing is, I know we've had quite a few questions prior to the webinar that maybe aren't on the Q&As, but one of the questions we had from one of the participants a couple of days ago was they've heard rumors that OET is going online, the test. I know that Peter, what's your take on that? For as far as I understand it, it's going to be available in some test centres online to start with, but there may be something in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's two different things, another good reason to have a relationship with a school or with an agent is to kind of get all of this kind of fragmented information together and kind of set people straight on what's available and what isn't. So there are two versions that involve a computer when it comes to an OET test. One of the versions is OET on a computer, and essentially it's a computer-based test in the same way. So, you may well do it at Language UK, John. I don't know if you do IELTS or computer-based test. So it's still invigilated, it's still have to go somewhere, it's still secure, but you take the test on a computer in that location. The reason that has been launched is primarily because of their the OET's designs on the US market. So the OET on a computer is available very widely in the USA, and it's just been launched, relaunched. So yes, there are locations where you can do OET on a computer, but it's still a situation where you have to go to a location, and it's an invigilated secure test. There's also OET online remote proctoring. So this is doing it at home on a computer with a secure setup where it's invigilated remotely. They have a partnership with a kind of a cybersecurity expert that allows them to do remote proctoring. That as yet hasn't been relaunched. That's in kind of testing still. The reason for that is around two things, but they're both around security. It's a high stakes test, and it allows you to register with governing bodies for your medical profession. So there cannot be any room whatsoever for any kind of cheating or anything like that. The computer-based test, so OET on a computer, completely secure because it's invigilated by real people. The OET at home, they're still in the kind of the setup phases of that. However, my understanding is that the plan to launch the OET at home will extend only to countries where there is no physical test center. So, for example, in Europe, you can go to take your OET test in Madrid, in Milan. There's test centers all around Europe in quality language schools like LUK. It's less so, there is less availability in places like Finland, for example, where you would have to travel. You'd have to travel to the UK probably to take your OET test. So they're planning to allow remote proctored at-home versions of the test in locations where there's no physical test center.
Which I received from somebody. It's basically about the expiry. Does the test have an expiry date?
Yeah, you would need to check with the body that they're using it for. So probably they're taking the test because they want to register with one of these bodies. So you need to check the rules for that body. But in the UK, it's 2 years. So within 2 years, you've still got an eligible test.
Okay, fantastic. And it's just worth pointing out, isn't it? The exciting thing about online and the exciting thing about OET is that it's not just the UK. It's not just about people wanting to come to the UK. There are several other countries as well. I think it was originally developed in Australia, wasn't it? The OET.
Yeah, developed in Australia, and really, obviously, it's the exciting thing is if you want to go and practice medicine in an English-speaking country. But OET will get you into Australia, it will get you into Singapore, it will get you into Dubai, it will get into UK, US. It's a massive thing, really, for anybody who wants to work kind of overseas. So it's really not a UK-centric exam. I've been a little UK-centric because I work so closely with the NHS, but it's certainly not a UK-centric thing.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of possibilities there because, I think travel tourism as well as online is becoming more and more about sort of work and career focus, much more an investment than maybe a pleasure investment, but more of a life investment. So I think it's a very solid thing to sell to potential students online or face to face, and I think it's an excellent opportunity for anyone who's watching this as a potential candidate